I don't know how long this is going to take, but I ain't going to make it 2 years. Like I didn't feel like I would ever experience being a depressed person until, 2 years in, and you don't have answers, and it got to a very like dark point. Like I was like, I can't. I got the question. I'm a pretty strong guy, and I was like, I don't know how many more years I can live. Like this quality of life is not. I would rather a lot of other things than this way that I'm living right now.
This is the Elevation Room, a space where we unpack life's hardest moments and the impact that they have on our faith, family, and fulfillment. I'm your host, Dustin Lale, and each episode we share real stories of resilience and breakthrough to inspire you to keep moving forward, rooted in your purpose, living on purpose, and walking with purpose. This journey we call life is not meant to be done alone. So click subscribe or the follow button now, settle in, and join us as we go into the Elevation Room. Today, I had the privilege of sitting and having a conversation with a guy that I have known since third grade, best friends all the way through high school, my man, Aaron Phillips. This has been a long time coming, and I can't wait for you to sit and hear a couple of the challenges that he experienced as he started a family, started a business, and was pursuing a dream of fighting in the UFC all at the same time. We unpack a couple of the setbacks he experienced in his competitive career and what it was like navigating that with his family, some of the internal challenges and dialogues that was going on. But through it all, Aaron shared that, though training might be his journey, teaching has always been his joy. And so with that, I hope you enjoy and stick with us all the way through the end in today's conversation in the Elevation Room with Aaron Phillips. Welcome back to the Elevation Room. Today, I'm excited. We've got Aaron Phillips, a man I have known since we were in third grade together. We had a great relationship all the way through high school, really, and reconnected whenever we moved back to Lafayette. Man, I am excited to have you on this podcast.
Thanks for having me on.
Absolutely. Well, as we always like to start, and a lot of people in Lafayette know who you are, but I'd love for you to share a high level where you are today, a little bit of history, and then we'll get into one of your stories.
Sure. Aaron Phillips from Karen Crow, and that's where I know Dustin from. We've known each other since third grade. We wrestled together in high school. He did martial arts from a young age, as did I. I started at 7, and then we wrestled together in high school. And then from there, I kind of kept doing martial arts into college, judo at UL, did jiu-jitsu. MMA was blowing up. I watched Forrest Griffin and Stephen Bonner fight on The Ultimate Fighter when I was 16 years old, and I looked at who I was with, and I said, that's what I want to do. So nice. I just kind of hit that right timing, and turned 18. 2 weeks after I turned 18, I had my first amateur fight here at the Blackham Coliseum in Lafayette, and we just kept on rolling. Eventually traveled all the way overseas to Thailand several times and turned professional in mixed martial arts, and fortunate enough to work my way up through the ranks. Fought in the UFC 10 years ago, fought in the UFC 3 years ago, and then here we are. I opened up a gym 9 years ago. Have a beautiful family, wife, and then 2 kids, and somewhat established and trying to find our routine, but blessed and happy to be in Lafayette through all of it.
Absolutely. That's something I think I've shared on this podcast before, and something I've admired about you for as long as I can remember. I tell people all the time is, as we were growing up, I was always like, oh, I want to do this, I want to do that. I was in your mission, your goal was always, hey, I want my school. At the time it was Taekwondo, and that evolved as, you evolved a little bit, but you are living that dream with Head Kicks MMA, and still going at it. You know what I mean? And that was a dream you've had in your heart for as long as I can remember, which is something I tell people I've always admired about you. So that is an amazing feat.
I was a guy that was fortunate enough at an early age to perhaps figure out my calling. Yeah. I started, assistant coaching in Taekwondo classes at 11 and 12 years old, and I knew I loved teaching. I could see the smiles that it would bring to kids' faces, and then what it would do over the course of time, over a year, kids that really struggled, and then how it made me feel inside. So I sometimes I say like training is my journey, but teaching is my joy. So I do train for my own competitiveness to stay in shape, but teaching is my joy. It is what I have as a root cause has always motivated me. So yeah, I was fortunate enough to find from a young age. Even my martial arts instructor at the time went out of town on a honeymoon, and at 12 years old, they kind of told me of the guys remaining that I would be the head guy in charge, not running the business in any sense, but here I am, 12 years old, running classes, leading a mat of 15, 20 people, and it was at that age that I was like, this is what I want to do. So
That's amazing.
Yeah, I was fortunate enough to have a lot of those opportunities growing up.
That's amazing. Yeah, that's something I've always admired. So, man, good on you for that. Absolutely. So I know you've been on a phenomenal journey, like you said, training all around the world, starting a family, growing a family, a business all at the same time. I'd love to understand and walk through one of the challenges or, a challenging season perhaps that you'd like to share with us.
Sure. We can, like I said, it's tough to pick one or two. I'll start with probably the good, and it leads into the challenging. We talked about my family, my wife, Charity, my son, Jose, and my daughter, Esther. Jose is 9, and he was born 2 weeks before he was due to be born when our business was open.
Okay.
So we opened Head Kicks Martial Arts on Johnson Street, and first time opening a business of my own. And we were super excited about it, and super excited to have my son. And he was born. His due date was our first day of business. So imagine setting a first day of business, getting everybody ready, and then coming up and saying, "Well, staff, you might have to run this one and maybe the whole week without me." Imagine setting like the pace and the culture of your business and being like, "Well, y'all do it," But fortunately, he held off 2 weeks, and so we opened and had a good couple weeks, and then but since that point, since his birth and literally the birth of our business, it has been running and gunning and nonstop. It's a life-changing experience, and I know anybody that's an entrepreneur and a family man has a similar story, but maybe mine align very, very congruently, and I'm fortunate that Jose waited those 2 weeks.
Yeah,
so.
that's amazing. So I can't even imagine setting up a culture, like you said, of, hey, all right, well, we're starting, but good luck, have fun. How was the response from, the people that you had around you at the time?
Well, it really set the culture because my son was in my wife's arms the whole way. And so, everybody would come in and you knew it was a family. Mm-hmm. So we have a slogan, the fight, family, integrity, God in the center, humility, and teamwork. And the first thing you see usually is my wife and my kids. And I let people know that's just the way that we do things around here, because I wouldn't do it any other way without them. Yeah. And everybody understands that and kind of appreciates it in their language, in the way that they treat others. And if they don't, then they just don't stick. It's like we have a really good culture with our within our gym, and I'm happy with that.
Yeah, that's something I would say that, the kind of subtitle of this podcast is faith, family, and fulfillment. And Head Kicks and what y'all have created has really embodied those 3 pillars all in one, where you've got like God in the center of y'all's slogan. That's something that when we talking in the community, folks very much say, oh, we love Head Kicks because we know we can trust our kids over there and what they're teaching, what they're instilling in them. Yes, of course, the skills, but, like on the mat, but also off the mat, more importantly. And, I know it's something I've considered as a father. We wrestled, like, hey, do I get Asher involved in wrestling? I'm like, oh, I remember some of those practices that we were at. I remember those summer camps. It's like, I don't know if I want to expose him to some of those things just yet, but Head Kicks, you don't have to worry about any of that. And so y'all have embodied that really, really well. I mean, was that something you, from the beginning, said, hey, this is what our standard's going to be, or has kind of evolved as time went along?
No, I would say that's what the standard was going to be. I don't take it for granted that people put their 3-year-olds in with us. And that was my favorite class to teach, to keep up with these young little dragons running around. It brings me great joy. And they are very impressionable. And you can really build a young man or a young woman. And so I take that into consideration when I develop staff, usually the staff that they come from my program, and I build them up. I can see a gifting in them and encourage them to maybe have a job doing that and sharing that. So it comes into like the hiring process, and even if I'm expecting them to give into a younger generation, then when we do leadership training, when we do instructor training, I am pouring into their cup too, in both the instructional, but also like where you're at in life, and you know, it's my calling too to continue to develop them.
Yeah. So as y'all are growing the family, building the business, obviously charity's right there along with you, but simultaneously you were pursuing an individual dream of fighting in the UFC, which you've done a couple of times, like you said. Was there at any point a season where juggling all three, being the family, the business, I'll say a personal pursuit, where that was difficult, or y'all had some tough challenges or decisions to make?
Yeah, to this day.
Yeah.
But no joke, to this day.
Yeah.
But it is a balancing. The start of the business came as well as at the same time of when I got out of the UFC the first time. The plan was to go win 2 fights, 3 fights in impressive fashion, and let's get back to the UFC. And I didn't miss a beat. You know, I lost 2 close fights in the UFC. They released me. I said, okay, I belong there. I'm gonna go beat these other guys. I'm gonna go get back there.
Yeah.
And I go and I get my leg broken in the very first kick of the fight. I took a tough fight. The guy kicks, he breaks my leg. And we fought 3 rounds, and my leg was unstable. I thought it might have just been hurt. I stood up in round 2, and my leg was wobbling back and forth. And I was like, oh, this is going to be a problem. So,
oh, wow.
So it was a tough fight. That guy ended up breaking multiple people's legs and going into the UFC, and so he still fights in the UFC. He's a top contender to this day. So it's like, all right, at least he's doing well. I'm glad we still see each other sometimes, and it's all good. But there, like, you want to talk about making a plan and saying, all right, this time next year, I literally said that. This time next year, I'm going to be in the UFC. And then I'm looking up at the hospital lights. So I ended up having what's called compartment syndrome in my right leg. So the swelling in my leg got so much that I couldn't feel my toes anymore. I couldn't move it at all. And so this situation escalates very quickly when we're in the hospital, and we realize my foot is not moving. I can't feel anything. The doctor's coming and touching me, and there's only so many hours you can go without feeling before you potentially lose a leg, right, or lose that limb. So we had to make some decisions. We were getting to like a 48, maybe a 36-hour mark, and I couldn't feel my leg. And the doctor comes and talks to us. My family's all there, and my extended family, my wife's family, they're kind of praying with me and for me. And the doctor says, okay, I think we're making progress. We'll probably be able to, I think we're going to work through this. It's looking good. I said, great, that's wonderful. And then my family goes out. It's just my wife and I. We say bye to my family. They kind of do their thing. Then the doctor comes back in about 5 minutes later, and he says, okay, we need to have a serious conversation. We're gonna have to do a surgery, or you're gonna lose your leg.
So wait, what happened 5 minutes ago?
Right. So I said, but 5 minutes ago you said we were like really looking good. We let all the family go. He's like, yeah, there's no way I was gonna bring up all of that in front of that many people.
Oh, wow.
So I was like, oh, I guess he's done this before, but like a little bit of transparency would have gone a long way.
I could have avoided this emotional
we just
roller
high-fived everybody, So anyway, I was like, tell me what's going to happen. What are my options? He said, well, if you don't feel the nerves in your toes, you can't wiggle your pinky toe, by the 48-hour mark per se. I don't exactly remember, but then you may never play football with your son. You may never go run out there and catch a pass with your son. I was like, okay. Or the other option is like, well, then we fillet your leg open and we have to drain it. So we slice your leg open at 10 inches on each side, and we let the blood drain out, and then we graft from your hamstring or your glute to it to fix, and I was like, does that,
invasive.
I was like, will I fight again? Like, how does that? He's like, you'll get to play football with your son, but I would say your competitive days are over at that point.
Wow.
So I'm sitting there, I'm like, I was in the cage of a main event in a fight, like, woo, we're, 25 years old, getting after it. And then I'm being told that, you either will lose your leg and for sure never play football with your son, never run out there, or you will have a surgery, keep your leg, but your competitive career is over. So neither of those are, we're going to be in the UFC this time next year. Very, very different.
No kidding.
So like we woke up one morning thinking a certain thing, and by that night we was in the hospital knowing a totally different future. And so that was a little bit of a reckoning there, you know. So we had a lot of prayer, a lot of tears too. And fortunately, the doctor said, I'm going to check on you every hour because these are big decisions. And I said, absolutely. He come in and he would take his finger and rub the bottom of my foot.
Okay.
And if I could feel it, to let him know. And several times he come in and, I could not feel it. And by like the 6th hour, we're getting close to, he was like, one of these times is going to be the last time that I'm coming in. And so he did it. And I don't know if it was by me wanting to feel something or me feeling something. And I was like, yeah. I feel you're right there by my right pinky, And I said, and then he took a little bit more time. And eventually I started to have some sensitivity back in my leg, and then enough for him to say, all right, we'll check on it a couple more hours at a time. And literally hour by hour went on, and I could start to move my pinky toe, and
oh wow,
and have 12 hours later, I'm getting a lot of sensitivity back, and eventually able to wiggle my toes, and to the point where he's like, okay, we went through the eye of the needle, and you're gonna. We're gonna avoid surgery.
Oh wow!
And so that was amazing. That was an answer to prayer for sure at that time. So we didn't have any surgery at all. I didn't, my leg fully recovered, but I didn't have. I couldn't. It was very sensitive. The nerves were still damaged. So it was about 3 years that I couldn't take a kick. In fighting, you get hit all the time. So if something would hit it, I would basically collapse. So that was like, first year was very sensitive. Second year was very sensitive. Third year was getting better. And then I was sparring again and decided that we could compete on it and that we were fully recovered. So during that period of time that I couldn't fight, I was able to open a business and kind of give into that, learn the business side of things, and then work my way up. Like as I was developing fighters, like okay, year 1, year 2, year 3, they're about ready, and then I'm sharpening them, but they're sharpening me. They're helping me get back to an athletic career as well.
Yeah.
So
what was that? Obviously when you're hour by hour on the hospital bed, what kind of conversations were y'all having, you and Charity? Was it, hey, we're getting through this, or was it, God help? Like, what are you doing here? Like, all of the above. What was that? I think
it was a lot of God help.
Yeah.
But she's just the best. I mean, you'd probably better have her on here sometime. She's just the best. She was praying with me. I'm sure more than I even knew. I was probably snoozing and she was praying for me. So undoubtedly that played a significant role in all of that.
And then you get out of the hospital. Hey, God, you showed up. I don't have to have the surgery. Thank you for that. But I can't fight. I can't do that piece of it. Was that a struggle internally for you, or was it easy for you to compartmentalize that and say, hey, this is just where I'm at. I will focus on the business, which is also a dream of mine, right? So you had kind of these two dreams going at the same time.
I would say that I learned a lot in that season. Because my identity for a long period of time was martial arts, wrestling, fighting, competing. You get in the UFC, you attach your name to the UFC brand. It's like, that's who I am. I'm going to be back there next year. And then all of a sudden you're injured and you may never fight again. And then you don't know if you're able to get back to that competitive. So it really reckoned me as far as like, I'm not even a winning fighter anymore. I mean, that was, can I do this? So inside that did a lot to me. Fortunately, I had my family, my wife, my kids, and my purpose, my gym to like, I had to be strong for everybody that was around me. But certainly there was an identity crisis going on. But I learned that as an athlete, you can be, but it's not healthy to be so lenient upon, a certain identity because it can be gone. A gift from God he can shift gears in any which way. And maybe because I was so, this is what I gotta have it. I gotta have that UFC win. It's gotta be there. That's 12 months from now, I want to be there. And he's like, you ain't learned it yet. Let me go ahead and, take this one, give you a couple more years. And then it's like, so now I can look at my athletes and in a way say like, been there before, and when it happens, it can happen fast, and let's be ready. Maybe it wouldn't have been healthy for me to win 2-3 in a row in the UFC. I don't know if I was mature enough at the time to do that, or take a family and raise a child through that. Maybe I would have stumbled, in certain ways. So maybe it took me like reckoning and seeing the other side of the coin to to have the relationship with my wife and kids that I have right now. Maybe I would have stumbled if I got too much too soon, So certainly a lot of lessons now that at least I can say, obviously I hope my athletes reach the pinnacles of their success and their potential. Right. And it's like, but when defeat befalls us, it's like, been there. Yeah. You don't have to tell me. I just put my hand on their shoulder and, been there, man. I know I hurt too. And but I can tell you what, you can build. Yeah. It just is what it is.
Yeah. It kind of reminds me of, think of like a football coach in high school, and they're like, hey, everybody wants to be in the NFL. There's only a small percentage that's going to make it. And so who you become off the field is more important. Yes, it'll help on the field, but even more so in life and the things that you'll do in your future. And so I wonder if some of that, that time allows you now to pour into your athletes, like you said, and what you've built head kicks around of, hey, off the mat is just as or more important than what you do on the mat in a lot of ways.
And even the athletes that do find great success, I encourage them to utilize the platform and let's build you some, you've got a gifting, but there's something else that you can also do constructively. If that's maybe t-shirt designs, maybe you can you're good at creating t-shirts, or maybe you're good at doing online stuff, or maybe, and so that way you can put deposits into another area, and you can use your platform to help you build that brand just in case. I had an injury at one time, and then I had a whole nother season where I faced a to me, a debilitating disease. And so I lost 3 years of my athletic career to my leg break in my first UFC. I fought back, had 5 fights, 5 wins, and then I got to the call to the UFC again. I fought in Fight Island during COVID in Abu Dhabi, which was crazy because, COVID was crazy in itself. Yeah. I mean, we get off the plane. We're flying privately with Emirates, nicest plane I've ever been on. And we get there and people are in bubble suits.
Are you serious?
Oh, I'm serious. I got videos of we're getting off the bus. We're literally in a bus coming from the airport with 40 fighters on this bus. I mean, we're shoulder to shoulder in the bus. I'm looking out the window. These people are outside in bubble suits, Michelin Man space suits. And I was like, I don't exactly understand. Me and my coaches are right here next to each other. But outside that window, in the open air, y'all got to be wearing bubble suits. Yeah. So we got out and they vetted us, did the quarantine and it was a wild time because I fought on Fight Island. It was like the second ever, the first week of athletic competition. Okay. I think the UFC was the first company to ever make athletic competition back after that COVID season. It was June or July. And fought on a private island in Yas Island in Abu Dhabi. And so I had a couple fights in the UFC, tough fights. And during that period, my health started deteriorating. I couldn't make it through hard fight camps, like the 3rd or 4th week of camp. Camp's usually 8-9 weeks. So about the midway through, we're hitting full swing, and my health started deteriorating, and I had to pull out of a few fights with the UFC. So I would, I eventually went to the PI after about a 3/4 of a year of struggling with it. And
What's the UFC?
The
Performance
UFC Performance Institute in Las Vegas. They have a support team there, a medical team, and we just started running tests and trying to get to the bottom of it. And funny enough, the guy that I watched in 2006, Forrest Griffin versus Stephan Bonner, who got me interested in being in the UFC. He is the fighter liaison at the UFC PI, and we're talking about what's going on. And he says, "Man, you know what? I'm just gonna be honest with you. My wife deals with a lot of similar issues. She went through a very tough period, and she was diagnosed with Lyme disease, and now she's making a recovery with all these methods." And so he put me on to a couple. It's the first time somebody ever said that to me. I don't even know what it was, right. So it turned out I had it's like basically a deer tick disease, and we had bought some property at the time, and I'd started hunting just in case my son wanted to hunt eventually. I literally didn't grow up hunting, but I started to learn and get in the woods. And so I assume at some point in those seasons, I picked up a tick, and there's a variety of ways that it can happen, but I don't
nothing
remember.
You could pinpoint.
Yeah, nothing I can pinpoint. But basically he told me if you take some antibiotics and you see a result, then you've got something in this lineage. And so I just got my hands on some doxycycline or amoxicillin, like a small, nothing crazy. And I took it, and I basically crashed my immune system for 3 days, and then I felt better for about 5 days.
Oh, wow.
And then I did it again. I did that for about 3 weeks in a row. I take some amoxicillin or some doxycycline, and then I would crash. You're killing whatever's affecting you. But then I would feel better for about a week. And so after two cycles of that, I realized like this is what I need to start doing. There's something here. And so I went on about a year's kind of pilgrimage of finding different doctors, learning different methodologies. We tried to go all herbal for a time, and my wife looked up everything. We started raising animals. We started raising chickens. We started eggs, meat birds, pigs to do everything that we could. She started gardening, having our own spinach and fruit and vegetables to impact my health. And
and was that because as y'all were on this pilgrimage, that was part of the kind of holistic solution they were presenting? Was like, hey, clean food, homegrown. I mean, is that how it kind of all started?
Yeah. Because you have to eliminate the toxins in your body.
Okay.
And so we were learning that most everything in our current environment that's sold to us is full of toxins.
Right.
Anything that's pretty much bought. And so how do you if I need to live as pure as possible, if that's the best way to do that, then we're going to raise our own food from our backyard or raise our own chickens and animals and whatnot. So, and that was like, I think that helped, that helped change the way that we do things. Ultimately, I met a Lyme literate doctor, and he prescribed me a very aggressive protocol for antibiotics.
Okay.
So it would be hard set of doxycycline, and then ultimately it went to Dapsone was one of the heaviest antibiotics that I took, and so they would kind of double their dosages every week, and then the last one was like, and we're talking 4 or 5 antibiotics at a time.
Wow.
And so this would really affect like my training. When you're on antibiotics, you can't really do too much.
Okay.
You're lucky to get away with a couple hours, maybe a session. You don't have the get up and go. So my training was certainly affected. But kind of before that, like we were also moving, trying to build a house. We were living in a rented home. I was mowing grass at the gym. I was mowing grass at our property that we had bought. I was keeping up with the grass at the rental house. So many things were going on while I'm driving to Austin, while I'm driving to Dallas to try to to try to make it to these UFC fights. So it was a very trying time. And meanwhile, I just started sleeping like 16 hours a day.
Wow. Because of the heavy antibiotics.
Because of, even before that, there was like with Lyme, basically your immune system just starts to crush, and there's like a bacteria that comes in and kind of weakens your immune system. So a combination of it by itself and then the antibiotics were really, my immune system was very suppressed. So I was just kind of resting throughout the day. It was about the best I could do. Or sit at a computer was about the best that I could do. So it was a very tough time for us because yard work had to be done, because classes had to be taught, furniture had to be moved.
Yeah.
It was a laborious time that I really struggled, and I wondered, like, how long is this going to go on for? And my wife took a lot of that, and she's raising 2 young children. I mean, we're talking Jose is probably 6 and 5 at that time, and Esther's like 2. So she's like, man, I need some support. And I'm like, I'm barely hanging on. Like we got to points where there's different methodologies of treatment. And I was like, there was a $10,000 experimental treatment in like Europe. I told my wife, like, let's go. I was like, I would do whatever. Like, we talked about selling the property to pay for treatments, because I was like, I don't know how long this is going to take, but I ain't going to make it 2 years. Like, I didn't, I'm not one to talk about depression and things like that. But I can definitely understand it a lot more. I didn't feel like I would ever experience being a depressed person until, 2 years in, and you don't have answers, and it got to a very like dark point. Like, I was like, I got the question. I'm a pretty strong guy, and I was like, I don't know how many more years I can live. Like, this quality of life is not. I would rather a lot of other things than this way that I'm living right now. Like, my brain was, my head was throbbing from the moment I woke up. My body would shoot with joint pain. So it was rough. It was definitely a rough time, and I can understand depression more so at this point, having been through that.
And what like for charity, what was that? Like you said, you're 2 years in. What was that for her, as you understand it now? To get her out on here and talk through that season, but what was that for y'all as a family and for her as the wife?
The first year was probably very tough. Initially, it's like you don't know, unless you got bit by a tick or something. You don't know, and it's just like, well, maybe I'm 30 years old, maybe I'm low testosterone, or it's like sometimes like maybe I'm just being lazy. Like, initially I was a lot of like, just get up and go mow the grass, and it's like, it's not that bad.
Right.
It's like you get outside for 2 minutes, and I'm like, guys, I gotta go lay. Like, I have got to go lay down. I'm about to fall over. It's like, now I can look back on it and say, like, wow, those were tough times, because I can go out in the sun now and get a whole day's worth of work, and it's like, yeah, clearly there was something, but at the time,
when you're in it,
you're just like, am I being a little girl? Like, no offense to girls, but it's like, what am I? What is going on? Am I just being lazy? And I'm sure people are thinking that too. Like, why you're looking kind of flat today, Aaron? Or your performance is not very well. You don't look, and you just tell people, I'm not feeling very well, right now, and it's like, you don't look sick. It's like, like, you hear that for a year straight, and you're like, I know, I got it, I got it.
Yeah.
It's all good. So initially we had to increase our education level. So we went to Missouri to a big, like, 3-day conference, and met so many different doctors and consultants, I guess, in the field, or professionals in the field. And then there were people left and right of me that had been dealing with this for 15 years. A lady had a binder this thick of all her blood work records from 15 years ago. And I looked at her like I said, hey, kudos to you. Like, you are in this thing 15 years and still getting, like, going for a solution. And I was like, I get home and I'm like, I don't know if I can make 15 years. Like, that's serious. Like, that, you think you're strong? Like, that's a strong person to be in it, for that amount of time. So it was definitely a very tough period of time. I can't really speak on it for my wife because she was so deep into it with the kids and with she took up all the slack obviously that I created. So but it was enlightening for both of us when we went to that specific conference in Missouri and got around other people that were also like, when you're not the only one. Lyme's pretty rare down here in the South, from what I understand. So literally doctors would tell me, like doctors in Lafayette would be like, no, there's nothing wrong with you. It's maybe your thyroid. You might have some adrenal gland issues or something like that, but it doesn't look like anything major. And it's like, okay, well, I can't be outside for more than 5 minutes, so something's major.
Yeah, it's like, all right, I need to go find some answers somewhere. Yeah.
So and then you compound that with you're pulling out of fights in the UFC, or your performance is good. If I get off a cycle of antibiotics and then I'm good, I'm back. I'm like you're back like addicted to performance, and then the next week you just like you run yourself in the dirt because you stressed your body out to the point that your immune system couldn't hang and fight off the load. So the load comes back, and then you're kind of back to square one. You got to take 2 weeks, and you got to get back on a cycle of antibiotics, and it's just like it was a vicious cycle.
Yeah, dude, I can imagine the mental gymnastics and the wrestling of, man, what is going on? Why can't we figure this out? Why I feel great, and then back at it again. While you're running a business, while you're trying to perform in the UFC, obviously growing a family and supporting at home. And I bet the conference also for charity might have been an encouragement of like, okay, we're not in this alone. We can do this. We just got to know what we're facing. I bet I could imagine, hopefully that would have been an encouragement for her and along those lines.
Yeah. And obviously we're praying, we're faithful folks. So we would share, and I will accept prayers for anything. Yeah. And guys would. And it's like, is there anything in your life that needs to be fixed or corrected or forgiven for? Or sometimes, it's like, is it a demonic attack on it? And they all could be, they all could be. For me, the solution was heavy dosages of antibiotics. And so I found a doctor in Houston, and that was the route. So it was like an interesting time in the faith world. Yeah. You're asking God, like, am I Job? I mean, goodness gracious, what is going on? I'm getting hit with everything. I thought we just had our forever property, but now I can't even mow the grass on this property, much less build a house on it, So it was a difficult time.
Yeah, how long would you say that season was in totality where you feel like, you got over that difficult part?
That was about 3 years.
Wow.
Yeah, 3-year period of life. That you can look on my MMA record. I think it was probably 4 fights that I, pulled out of.
Okay.
Maybe one of them was the opponent. So. Yeah. But I think I lost about a 2-year athletic stint right there.
Okay.
So
wow. So 3 years, and then when was it when you got over that hump? Was it a moment that you're like, okay, like we're finished with this difficult season, or was it something you just kind of looked back and say, hey, I think we've got it, contained? Yeah,
it was a slow thing because sometimes it would be like it got to a point you're just stretching the times that you're feeling good. Okay. So instead of like 2 weeks, it would go to 6 weeks and 8 weeks and 2 months. And so my last UFC fight, I had a torn LCL, but I had good health physically. I didn't have any issues in my last camp. I could say I had 8-9 weeks of like feeling okay with my own personal health. And then after that, it was like constant 2-3 months, and I'd feel bad. And then after that, it was like 5-6 months, feel bad. And then it's probably been a year and a half now that I've been like, we good. Like we're we're all good.
Well, that's a blessing.
Yeah, absolutely. I haven't taken an antibiotic in 18 months.
Wow. So well, that's awesome. Have you over the last that 18 months, 2 years, have you noticed like, hey, we're just getting after it now, resetting in a sense of I know sometimes through a difficult season, you feel like, in your words, hey, charity had to pick up the slack in all these areas. And you feel like, hey, now, like we're cruising now, we're going.
Yes, yeah, I do feel that we're cruising in a sense that like my son is playing football now in Texas, and that is something that I would not have been able to do 3 years ago.
Wow.
Like to go and watch him practice. We have a game this weekend, and to go and drive myself and meet them out there, and then have the labor involved, and come back, and obviously you got to catch up on the gym, or you got to work extra so I can make that time to go to see my son. It's like we're good on that sense.
Yeah.
I have the work in me. I know I have the load in me to be like, all right, I know it's what it's going to take to do this, and I can do it. But previously it was like, I don't know if I got it.
Wow. Did Hosea, because, I mean, he was old enough, did he notice a difference or a change, you think?
I don't think so. I'm fortunate enough, I don't think the kids really, and I think Charity did a good job of keeping them occupied.
Wow.
And yeah, I don't think Esther Shirley was too young.
Yeah.
Hosea probably doesn't remember much of it.
Wow.
Yeah. They kind of remember when we lived at a different, rental house.
Right.
And that was all that period. So I don't think they remember much about it.
So now looking back over that season, what would you say a couple of things that you've learned through that difficult time?
Your partner is, your wife, your husband is everything in that sense.
Wow.
Yeah. You lean on them for a lot. And I definitely think it was the prayers of my wife that, sure, the efforts, but also the prayers that helped me to work through it.
Yeah, that I can't imagine having to go through that without a wife that, like you said, was so supportive and willing. I mean, now y'all are, she's the gardening,
Right.
queen on social media in a lot of ways in our area, and y'all homestead and raising all these animals. I mean, like you said, what y'all learned in that season affected the way you live even today, holistically as a family unit. Yep. Which is pretty amazing, that y'all anchored in and said, hey, we're going to get through this.
Absolutely.
That's a blessing. And the property, y'all have grown the property, expanded the property, built a home on the property, and doing a lot of things. So
sometimes I have to remind myself, because the chickens have labor. We don't have pigs right now in the season. We have goats right now, but we're trying to steward it as a farm would be. We bought it as a farm. It didn't have any animals on it, but it was a horse farm, and it's like, what would this look like in Eden, I guess, the garden, and like, how would the Lord prefer us to steward it? And that's laborious,
Yeah.
But I remind myself, like my wife did this to help me in whatever it takes. She'll go out there in the sun and plant and sow the seed, so that way I could have a greater chance at a healthy life. And it's like, okay, then we get more animals, then we get plant the seeds.
Yeah. That's awesome.
Yeah. I can say it with grace now, but tomorrow I'll be like, oh my God, not another, plant. So,
yeah. I get that. Talk about the chickens at our house, which, we just have a handful compared to what you guys have. It's like, I don't want chickens. You know what I mean? But hey, this is the fruit of what we get, and that's something I've, like I said, always admired about you guys. One, from as early as I've known you, you had the dream, you knew what you want to do, and you've gone after it. And to you, I think yesterday when you and I were talking at the gym, you said, hey, we committed to this, talking about the football with Hosea. And whatever y'all commit to, man, y'all are steadfast in that, unless God says something different. And so that's an amazing attribute, I will say, that you just don't see a lot of nowadays, So good job.
Appreciate that.
Absolutely, man. I'm thankful for you. I know that we, like I said, best friends through high school, went off to college. I went to Baton Rouge. We kind of got disconnected, and I'll never forget the phone call I got. I was in Australia after you had given your life to the Lord, and you said, hey, just want to let you know this is what happened. And I was in Australia. I'll never forget that call. I was laying in bed because it was a 12 or 13-hour time difference, and I'll never forget that. And then from that moment, we started reconnecting again, and always so thankful.
Had you given your life to Christ at that time?
I had. I gave my life to Christ when I was 21, so that would have been 2011, I guess, 2012, 2010, something like that. If I can do the math, 2010. And, I was going on my own journey of excavating all the things that I had gotten involved in previous to that. And I remember that call because it was such a, God moment of, hey, in that season, I was trying to disconnect from, just a lot of the things I was involved in, including the people I was involved in and involved with. And so with that moment for me, when I got that call from you, it was, almost like a God wink of, hey, you can still have great relationships with people that you've known your whole life centered around Christ. I remember that, and I was so excited and so thankful. I was like, all right, Lord, we've known Aaron for a long time, and I'm so thankful that we share in this kingdom now.
Yeah. It's interesting. I know we talked because in college you went to LSU,
Yeah.
and maybe this is what I was thinking about when we talked about the advice portion, the ABCs, advice to my younger self. And sometimes I look back and I say, LSU is 55 minutes away, right?
Yeah.
I mean, it's sub-hour, It's like one of my best friends moved to LSU. And we went sometimes, me, Lucas, Tim, we would sometimes go, but it was like once a year, if that, right? It wasn't, and I mean, nowadays I'll drive 2.5 hours to Texas every weekend for, it's like I'll drive 6 hours to go to Dallas, to Austin. And it's, it's like, you can look back and be like, bro, that's easy. Like there's no reason. But at the time, I guess my worldview was much smaller, that it was like,
not just yours. Yeah.
It was like, oh, he's moving over there. And, I'll see him over the summer or, after we graduate. It was like, I didn't do those things. I didn't go. It was a very easy trip. I just didn't do those things. But then I also see it's like, maybe it's good we didn't make, I was doing my own thing. You were doing your own thing, both outside of the body of Christ. And it's like, maybe it was good we didn't have those memories together in some sense. I lived in the world, you lived in the world, and it's like, we'll reconnect, I guess, and celebrate each other's, coming back to the Lord.
Yeah.
And so it's interesting. It's like advice to myself. I guess I would say make the trip.
Yeah.
Make the trip.
Yeah, that's something I was unpacking on the last episode when it was just me, and I was thinking about, building our lives on this firm foundation, and it's like, when I think about that, I just see this massive fort, this steady, think of like a castle almost that's withstood the test of time. And, the F being God's faithful obedience, and R was the relationships. And that's something for me, looking back, and even where I'm at today, it's like relationships are so important. And I know when like high school and college were taken for granted, I took them for granted. You know what I mean? It wasn't something I ever invested in heavily. And so that is something that I've been trying to change quite a bit of, hey, God's put certain people in your life. Jesus had the 12 and he had the 3 that he kept close. And then he had the 12 disciples, and then, his circle got bigger and bigger. But he always had that core group that he kept close to him, and how important those people are. And so I'm thankful for you. And
likewise,
that is something, for me, relationships is something I'm really trying to improve upon, because there's so much value there. Like you're talking about going through this season with Lyme disease that y'all went through, and I'm sitting here like, man, if I would have been closer and known, our lives would have been a little more intertwined in those seasons, could I have been a voice of support or a shoulder of encouragement or whatever the case may be. And so, man, I'm thankful for you, and I appreciate you so much. So you shared the A. How about B? What books have made a big impact on you?
One of the biggest books I read a couple years ago was The Wealthy Gardener.
Okay.
I do recommend that one a lot. It's not, it's goodly principled, not necessarily godly principled, but it parallels to me. It has so many parallels in being a good steward of your finances, and like martial arts, sowing seeds in everything is compounding. Every class that you take, every little bit good nutrition, choice that you make compounds. And it's a story of a guy that stewards a garden and stewards his finances, and he writes this book for his son. And so as he's doing it, as the book is unfolding, there's certain principles in it in life, but also I look at ways that what would in fact be the best way to impart some of these lessons that I've learned into my son and my daughter. Like, is it a book? Should there be a? Ultimately, he writes all these principles, and then he puts together a poem or a riddle for his son to. He digs a hole and puts these secrets in a book and hides it in a hole somewhere, and his son's gotta find it via some of the context clues of their relationship, and he leaves him and that's just the last chapter, but it's like, well, could they be lost forever? Absolutely. These secrets could be lost forever, or via the relationship with the son and the father, they could. He could eventually, if he looked hard enough, and if he desired to find it hard enough, then he sure could. And it's awesome. Like, okay, maybe I don't have to dig with the shovel, but maybe there's my own way that like Jose and Esther would get a value from that too. So The Wealthy Gardener is a good one. I know people have already said Jocko Will. I've read Jocko's book, Extreme Ownership. Can't Hurt Me was like one that I. From a male point of view, like during that period of Lyme disease, like I took a lot of stake in that just to be like, all right, I got to be tough. I gotta work through it. To hear Goggins' backstory on all the things he went through as well was like, okay, fair enough. Life's not fair, and you got to work through it. So
yeah, those are good. And talking about The Wealthy Gardener, it makes me think about, Asher's going to be turning 5 in a couple of weeks. And I told Bethany, I said, I want to do kind of like a milestone trip, nothing big, but like an overnight camping trip or something. Take him on a sort of an adventure where he and I, not in a cabin, but just in a tent, around a campfire, maybe find a spot around town in Louisiana that we can go hiking. Almost like a masculine flag plant, if you will, milestone trip. Again, nothing long. Test him out on one overnight stay, see how it goes. But being more intentional about pouring into our kids. Evangelin's going to be 7. He's going to be 5. Oliver's turning 2. And not taking it for granted, because I know that I can get wrapped up in, we're building or doing these things for the family. But the family is right here, right now. And so trying to be working towards being present and intentional, it reminded me of what you talked about with The Wealthy Gardener and how can I package these principles? Like, hey, what we do homeschool, but what do I want to impart to them? It's like, hey, we're not raising good kids, we're raising men and women of God. You know what I mean? And kind of taking those perspectives, wrapping them with intentionality, and hopefully, sowing good seed. So that's I'm gonna have to look up that book and get it ordered. So I appreciate you sharing that. Yep. How about cherished family traditions?
It looks like football is going to be a cherished family tradition right now. Not something that I had on my radar, but Hosea has the opportunity to play with his 2 cousins, Cross and Titus, in Kirbyville, coached by his Pawpaw Vic, and my 2 brother-in-laws, Caleb and Justin, and then also assistant coached by my other nephew.
Awesome.
He's 13, 14 years old, Levi. And then, one day a week, if I can get out there, they'll kind of help, let me, get hands-on or be kind of close to the action. So it's like a family reunion. We got to go to Texas for it,
Yeah.
But it is like we kind of tailgate the practices.
That's cool.
At least I went last Thursday, and it was just so welcoming and so good to see. Like Mr. Vic has been coaching football for as long as I've been doing martial arts. And so it's not just it's a very special time that he gets to like do what he loves with who he loves, and he's great at it.
That's awesome.
It's like the fulfillment aspect.
Yes.
And so for me, just to be, and I get to learn. I'm not an expert in football, so it's like, but to watch somebody in their element and want to impart that wisdom into the other, one, because it's their team, but 2, it's their grandkids. It's like, oh, this is special. Like, and when you talk about fulfillment, this is like not very many things will we drive to Texas for every week. Like birthday parties are cool and stuff, but it's like yeah, let's go win a championship, I guess, because we're cousins and we're on the same, we're literally related to, half the team pretty much. It's like, yeah, let's go win a championship. How special can that be?
That would be amazing.
So just to see Mr. Vic get fired up I literally just got videos of Hosea making his first ever tackles. They just padded up, and it's like, yeah, that's cool. I mean, he loves martial arts. He just did a wrestling tournament in Alabama, did great, and but football is king in Texas, and that's what my family does over there. So maybe I'll turn our little family into a little wrestling season too when I'm there and stuff. Yeah. We've talked about doing that, but for right now, that's that. And I like Jose and Esther both coach at the gym.
Oh, cool.
And they both lead other classes, and so to see Jose get out there and sometimes I check the camera, especially if I can't be there, I'll check the camera. I saw Jose just leading it was like a really big class the other day, and it was like 20 people, and he just rolls. Like, he just has that presence about him of he knows the intonation to make, he knows the process. He's been on the mats for forever, and he is not afraid to get out there, and like him and I can go to Birmingham, Alabama, just us versus the world, and let's go. So like, he's got the respect of kids that are much older than him, because he's been in the cage 6 times under the bright lights. Like he can make those calls, and Esther's stepping into her her little, she assists. She's more the subtle assister, but like to see like my legacy, you could say, on the floor in action, on display, and get. They get compliments all the time, and that's like a family tradition. I guess if anyone that I would love to have is just to see them on the mats and helping others is great. Like, he doesn't have to do this he doesn't have to have a head kicks in the future. But like, my goal is if he wanted it, then it would be a blessing to him, and he could take it much further than I ever did. So. It's good to see him at least love it.
I know that's something, to your point, it's easy to recognize at the gym, when they step into those roles. Was that something, and I'll just ask real quick as we're wrapping up, but something that you and Charity were intentional about, or was it more evolved of like, hey, we're here, so he's here, and then you start seeing his growth in that area, and you're like, oh, hey, no, we need to put him and start bringing him into these classes? Or was it more organic of, oh, this is what we wanted from the beginning?
I always played the little games with Esther and with Hosea, so they got that little hands-on and made it fun early. I remember with Hosea, he was in the 3 and 4 year olds class, and I kind of put him in the 5 through 7 year old class one time, just to try him out, and he was playing a little bit. And I like fussed at him, and kind of had him sit off to the side.
Bro, that was me yesterday with Asher. I'm just going to say that. I was like, bro, what are you doing? Bethany asked me how class was. I was like, I'll tell you later. I was like, dude, what are you? So I'm sitting in the bleachers, I'm like, why are you goofing around? And I mind you, it's his first time back in a long time. Big class, all this. And I was like, all right, just calm down. But several times I wanted to be like, Asher, what are you? But I was like, nope. I'm not going to be that guy.
It was a big one yesterday. Yeah. It's like everybody, school started, everybody's like, yeah, we're going to come today. I was like, all right, dang, So, but Jose, like, I kind of put him in timeout, and like, I was like, all right. I watched all and he's just watching all the other kids. Like, he didn't recognize, he was just being 3.5 or 4 years old. It was just like, and I remember, I think one of the parents was kind of like, she loves us. She was just kind of like, oh, like looking at him. And I remember that moment of like, if I broke my kid, if I like caused his love to like, dispel from this, then I would hold myself accountable, So like, I remember being like, all right, you got to chill. Like that was not the way, maybe we found out how far we went. Yeah. Not that far again, and like, we just have fun. But I mean, like, I think it comes from him. I know fight camps are very difficult for my family. I may be done, just because like the labor involved with fight camps. I may be done competitively. I think because I lost 3 years with what we talked about. I lost 3 years with the leg break. I personally feel like I have more shelf life. Like, I've got more athletic life in my career. I haven't taken the damage per se, you know, that other guys have that have been in it that long. But I just got other priorities at this point, you know, and it's like hard to be fair, you know. So Hosea has seen me, and Esther, but like they have seen me go for a goal. They have seen me like, there are sacrifices that need to be made. If you gonna go in this game, you got to go all in, and like that means I sacrifice, and that does mean the family sacrifices. It's a whole, and I appreciate them for doing that, for missing me and me missing them on fight camp trips and stuff. So like I will say, like, he has seen that, like, when daddy sacrifices, when I come back and but then you gotta make it up. Like, if you're out, you come back and you gotta work. And he has seen me like go for something boldly, and he knows like I would never ask him to do anything that I was not willing to do. So I don't know. We talk about having another child, or we're trying to have another child. Hopefully, Lord bless us with, you know, and it would be a unique thing because Hosea got to see me go for something, like dare to be great, you know? And it's like, I would never ask you to do something, son, that like I was not prepared to, like, you know, go all in for myself. And like, if I see a potential in you, I'm gonna nudge you. I'm gonna keep on. I ain't gonna make you do it. Nobody can make you, you know, reach the top, but I'm gonna keep on nudging you, and I'm gonna try to pull you as much as I can. And so I think that's because he's naturally motivated. He knows, like, I've seen Dad live it out, you know, to an extent, and I'm if that's what we want to do, then there's only one way to do it, and it's all in. You know?
Yeah,
so.
I love that, man. Well, I appreciate it. I've enjoyed our conversation. If anyone in our audience wants to connect with you, what are the best ways to do that?
My gym is Head Kicks MMA on Johnson Street. We have teach kids of all ages and adults, and of course we have a amateur and professional fight team. Instagram, headkicks_MMA. The business is headkicks.mma. You can follow us on YouTube at headkicks as well.
Awesome, man. Well, I appreciate it. Thank you all for hanging out with us through this conversation. Remember, no matter what you are doing, to continue moving forward, rooted in your purpose, living on purpose, and walking with purpose.